just you get to choose. Right? Like here's the scenario. The environment gives us something which can be perceived as negative, can be perceived as not working, can be perceived as problematic. The world's ending. So we get to choose to see it like that, or we get to choose to see it as an opportunity.
So clearly that it's my responsibility now to do that for other people. If I have information and other people's success is my success, and vice versa.
Because you know what, like the challenges or the roadblocks are the journey themselves.
There's no big things. It's all little things compounding on top of each other. Coach Nick and I are excited to share our conversation this week with Brian Esposito. Ranked among the world's top 10 CEOs for 2020 in the World CEO Rankings Awards by Adria Management LLC, Brian J. Esposito is the founder and CEO of Esposito Intellectual Enterprises, or EIE. An award-winning serial entrepreneur and business leader, Brian is a core part of an innovative team to build Nodal, the world's largest wireless network and ecosystem of connected devices. Brian is also a core part of Team Turncoin and is involved with the launch of Virtual Stacks through The Exchange. The Exchange is the company behind Virtual Stacks and the Virtual Stacks app, a people-driven platform that empowers individuals to achieve their dreams while giving their fans a vehicle to support them, share in their journey, and participate in their success. The Exchange currently has the public support of Drew Brees, Patrick Mahomes, Randy Jackson, and Gene DeVillers. You may have heard of those people. Wholly owned by Brian, EIE is currently comprised of more than 75 entities and over 150 joint ventures that have been accumulated around the world over the last 20 years. Brian is a connector and has been perfecting his approach for decades. He connects not only the right people, but the right people at the right time. Sit back and enjoy this one. I just said so much about him. Now it's time for you to hear from him. Please welcome to this week's episode of Truth Seekers, Brian Esposito. All right, today we welcome on another episode of Truth Seekers, Brian Esposito. Brian, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, gentlemen. Honored to be here.
Absolutely. So I figured maybe throw a curveball today. We'll start backwards with as much as you've been through in your business environment. We usually try to take away something and give away something you've learned at the end of the conversation, but I kind of wanted to start out with that today. What's something in all of your endeavors that we could start out with? What can we focus on right out of the gate? What have you learned in your endeavors?
Yeah, I mean, most importantly is learning how to stay consistent with your actions, your behavior, and your motivators. People can feed off of that, and being genuine with your consistency. That's something that I've done since an early age, and people know what they get when they're working or talking with me. I tell it how it is: the good, the bad, and the ugly. And in addition to that, something I've tried to master is learning how to not give people your mindset, because it'll drive you crazy. That took me a long time to figure out, because if you ever said to yourself, why did somebody do that, or why did they act that way, or why did they say that? That's a silly thing to ask yourself, because they're not you. They weren't raised in your household. They didn't go through your life lessons or experiences. So learning how to just be at peace when somebody maybe says something that's a little off color, or does you wrong, or takes advantage of you. If you can find a way to be grateful that they did that, because they showed you vulnerability that you still have, and say a prayer for them, and wish them on their merry way, rather than sitting there driving yourself crazy, wondering why, that eats up a lot of time. And in my opinion, now as a little bit older, complete waste of time and energy, and your focuses should be elsewhere. So those are two things that I like to think I've learned, and hopefully I'll learn some more tomorrow.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. It's such a huge principle that Coach and I talk about all the time about there's a book out there by Michael Singer's eluding me right now, but it talks about the untethered soul. That's what it is. It talks about things getting stuck in our filter. So if we have an experience, somebody else could have that same experience and not think a second time of it, and we get stuck on that experience, or something sticks out to us about that experience. You mentioned vulnerability. We notice things that are meant to show things about ourselves. And I think that's such a cool thing, because that's what Coach and I coach to is, well, why are we hanging on to those things? What does that mean for you? And then where's the growth opportunity with that? Coach, do you find that to be true with your clients as well?
I absolutely do. It's. I got to go back to what you said though, Brian, because it's so true. Like don't try and give people your mindset. I haven't heard it said like that, but it makes me think like, don't ask why. Like, don't ask why questions because they're endless loop questions. Like, you can't understand it because you never do that. Stop trying. Like, it's like my wife will be like, Waverly to my 4-year-old, why did you do that? That's not a good question, babe. Like, what answer do you want that's going to make you feel better? Like, that's the thing. There's no good answer to that. You cannot win. So stop playing games. You can't win. And I'd like to also ask you as well around the consistency, because you said there's consistency overall, but you said around the mindset, around the actions and motivators. Clearly, that's valuable. And oftentimes that can be something that's obvious to people when there's something that you could do that's going to give you something or be of value. Perhaps sometimes what's not obvious is what's the cost of not doing that. So I'd love to get your thoughts and the way that you can articulate this. If you're not consistent with those things, what does it cost?
I think if you're not consistent with your actions or your behavior or why you're here, then I think you're a lost soul. Because you have to be on a path where you have, that's a catch-22. If you're consistent in making bad decisions, you want to only make that bad decision once. So then you want to be different. Like you want. For me, I can easily say that because I'm an old soul. So my motivators are ethics, integrity, the golden rule. I don't really belong in this world in this era, and I've accepted that a long time ago. So it's very hard for me, even though I could be surrounded by thousands of people, I don't really connect that quickly with people because everybody's caught in this rat race or their Instagram sensation where they want to post the best restaurant that they're at, a new watch that they got, or their fancy vacation. And I don't subscribe to that. Like, I just like normalcy, and that's a weird word today. I don't think anybody knows what normalcy is today. So when I say consistent, it's easy for someone like me because I just make kind of simple decisions every day. Where I'm going to try to help somebody today. I'm going to try to create value today. If I mess up or I hurt somebody and intentionally, I want to make it right. Like in my mind, it's just it's calm. But I know it's not the norm, but it did take me 20 years to get to this point. So hopefully that's answering your question as far as consistency. For me, it's easy because it's just, hey, I want to create a win-win situation. How do we do that for all the people involved? And as long as you don't have any ridiculous egos in that room or certain levels of pride or greed, you can accomplish those goals of simple, consistent decisions that just create a win-win environment.
I try to keep things in perspective, like social media and like people being first to post about things and that whole world. In the grand scheme of things, it's still relatively new, right? But that has to get old at some point, right? I resonate so much with you with like, I'm an old soul, I don't belong here. I don't know. I think there's a challenge for people like us to lead the way. I think there's more and more people that are, I don't know, see that vapidness for what it is, if I could be a little harsh on that, but that's what it is. Like I just don't, there's no value other than that satisfying that addiction or scratching that itch right away that you get from that. There's no long-term, like there's no alignment with purpose or anything like that with helping people. And I think more and more people are waking up to that. Would you agree with that, Brian?
I want to agree with that, but not in the circles that I'm exposed to. And if they do, it's temporary. Some people will turn that off for a day, for a week. I have a lot of friends, especially in the entertainment industry, where they'll tell me, I'm not going to be on Facebook for a while. So I don't even use Facebook, but they tell me this anyway. I'm like, oh, good, you need that. And then, I'll hear like an hour later, they're back on. So there is that. It's addiction. Yeah. And especially everybody being trapped in their house the last year and a half or so, people needed an outlet and they become more, they succumb more to that addiction because that's all that they had to connect with people. So it's not anybody's fault. This was forced onto the world. It connected the whole world. We've met thanks to me meeting, obviously Jonathan, and that happened through LinkedIn. So I'm very grateful for what social media and these platforms can do. It's allowed me to tell my story, which I'm honored to do, and I get excited when it resonates with people. But I don't use Instagram, Facebook. I don't use TikTok. I use LinkedIn, and I use Twitter for some of our companies. And people always ask me, how do you do so much on LinkedIn? Well, maybe if you don't spend 8 hours on Instagram today, you can do so much on LinkedIn. You can grow your career and your reach and create wonderful opportunities. What opportunities are you creating business-wise on Instagram? I believe that to probably be a very small number, unless you're an influencer and you're getting paid for sponsorships. And yeah, that's a business. But for someone like me, that would be a silly place for me to spend my time for growing, my professional career.
You mentioned it's taken about 20 years to come to this. I can relate to that. I don't know if I can put a timetable around my own journey, but I almost see it as like a coming home. It's like you're getting back into where you were always meant to be. And there's certain things that lead you to that spot. I'm just curious, were there any big moments over that 20 years where it pushed you in that direction? What was that like over the past 2 decades?
Yeah, it goes, a lot of it's always based around that concept of time. So my company models time's our most precious commodity. I've said that forever. And being the youngest of 4 siblings by 10 to 14 years old, I very early was exposed to the loss of life, grandparents, aunts, uncles. So I kind of joke about it, me being at more funerals and celebratory events in my childhood. So I quickly learned, how precious life is, and that it's a glimpse. It could be over in a second. So that was probably my initial instinct on, I want to leave my mark on this world. And initially I was training to be a baseball player, and then I made a decision to go into the professional world at 18 and started building companies. And then in 2016, my whole world fell apart, where I got into a car accident in Nashville where a drunk driver hit me head on. And it's a long story in itself, but the outcome of that is that I lost everything and I had to rebuild. And that really put hardcore into my mind. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I want to be very conscious about who I invite into my life. I want to be surrounded by good people. I want to be around positivity. Nick, you mentioned that this is kind of a calm environment before when we were getting started. And yes, I want to be in a calm environment. I don't need to be in a stressful, chaotic world. I refuse to be in that world. I don't care how much money I can make with somebody. If someone gives me anxiety, or I have such a bad taste in my mouth about someone, whatever business we can do together is irrelevant. I want them out of my life like food poisoning. So I was always kind of like that, but I was a little more passive until that car accident. Now I'm very vocal. When I sense something, I try not to be rude, but when I sense something of somebody, I let them know respectfully, sometimes a little more stern, that don't want them in my life. And it sounds cold, but this isn't Nazi Germany. I can choose things what I want to do and where I want to do it and who I want to work with. And I have to be consistent, back to that word, with that. I'm not going to invite toxic people into my world. And I'm very adamant about that. And saying it out loud, it sounds a little cold, but it's very important to me.
It's a high standard. And that can be a little bit difficult for some people to hear, because it's not how most people do things, right? But it's a higher standard. So I love the fact you shared that. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, I hate saying a higher standard, because I don't think anybody's better than anybody else. But I get how that may sound. It's more about just my own personal reaction to people. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I don't want it to make it look like I'm better than anybody, because that's just not me.
Yeah, well, I believe everyone's better than everyone else. I just think that's true, because look, everyone's had a slightly different experience, right? Even if you grow up with someone that's super close, even if they're your sibling, and you can have so many same experiences, but you might be in the same room, but what you observe might be different. And there's just so many things that make everyone completely unique. And so I like that thought, because it allows me to know that not only can I learn from everyone, but hopefully everyone can learn from me as well. And like, even if it's just something small.
Yeah.
And so I think about the standards as just like doing something which is actually going deeper into life, honoring the life that we have, to your point, Brian, about time, like you don't know what's going to happen. So let's play the game to the best level we possibly can. And that's how I
Well, I like that.
think. Yeah,
I like
man. I would love it if you would share as well, if you wouldn't mind, because I think it's really helpful. What are some of the maybe red flags, if you think about it, what that allows you to go, oh, this situation isn't going to be helpful for me. How do I get out there? What do you know? What do you see? What triggers you?
Yeah, there's so many red flags. I mean,
Yeah.
I've traveled the world and I've met hopefully every character you can think of. However, when I meet a new one and they again get over on me, I'm grateful because it's more of a evolving learning experience for me. But some simple ones that everybody needs to look out for. There's I'm a connector. I love that. And then I had to learn to revalue myself, especially since that accident when I was rebuilding. There's a lot of value in connectors make opportunities. They also destroy opportunities if they don't know how to manage that situation. I used to connect people because that's what I love to do, and it was they would go off and build billion-dollar companies and forget me. So there's a connector, and then there's business amnesia, which is one of my favorite quotes. I think I coined that. When connectors create an opportunity that they don't personally destroy, those people tend to forget who connected them. It's very consistent behavior. So, but the red flag in a connector is one of my favorites, because you're actually seeing somebody, you're watching somebody physically remove you from the situation. Is if you do it by email or you create a WhatsApp chat or something. But let's just say you connect two people through email because you see an opportunity.
Yeah.
This is old Brian that this would happen. It doesn't happen to me anymore because I have a little more of a procedure. And then the toxic person or the person in that situation that's a user, usually the connector is sought by someone that's trying to use you. That's typically the funnel, not the good relationship that you're connecting them to. So I need to preface it that. So the user will say, Brian, thank you so much for the intro. Not to burden your inbox, I'm going to move you to BCC. Meanwhile, you're out of the loop. Once they do that, the person you connected them to is a little confused, and now there's a thread without you. That to me, once anybody sees that behavior, that is an old dirty trick, and it should be illegal. It should be an illegal dirty trick with a fine attached to it. You're actually watching somebody remove you from the opportunity that you created. How ridiculous does that sound? It doesn't make any sense. But that's a constant thing. If I know people listening to this, it's happened to. It's a pandemic. It happens all the time. But if you have like what I built, a holding company, and now I create the opportunity, I bring the funnels into me, so I'm controlling the process, and I'm not bypassed and I'm not taken out of the equation. I'm controlling what happens in the situation. But that was I know that makes people's stomachs just burn when they see that, because you just physically got thrown in the garbage. And there's a million others. I mean, anybody that's talking about, if I'm ever in a room and someone's talking about things or materialistics, I don't connect with that. If someone, God bless you, like nice things. Everybody likes nice things, but I'm not going to go into business with somebody that likes really, really nice things, or they're flashing me their fancy watch, or they're showing me pictures of their home. It's obnoxious. I don't like it. It doesn't work well with me, but it also tells me that this person is about money. So that's all that motivates them is money. And God bless you, to each their own. But you're not going to use me to make more money, because then to me, that's a bad formula, because you'll do anything to make money to continue to show off your lavish things. So once I start hearing things about materialistics, I kind of go deaf. And these are just things that I look out for, because every time you touch the stove once, you get burned. You know not to do that anymore. So when I see this behavior from people, I know the outcome. I know their MO. I know what they're trying to accomplish. I'm all for using me. Use me. People use people all the time, but use me in a way where we're a team about it. We can create value together, and we do something good together. I'm not offended by the term use. That's reality. We use each other all the time, but let's do it in a way where guns are on the table and we're friends about it. That's what I want to. That's the people I want to work with.
Mutually beneficial. If it's a win-win-win, then we're talking here.
Always.
So I'm just curious about that process, Brian, because a lot of what Coach and I talk about is that success is iterative. And if this is your process, how do you recognize who to connect with? Obviously, there's some intuition involved there, like, oh, this person should meet this person. But how do you monetize that? What does that process look like for you?
So before we even get to the connecting piece now, because I needed some help because I'm naturally too trusting to a fault. So we have great legal compliance, accounting. We even have a private security arm. So, good people will go through that process. Bad people, you never hear from again. So there's that filter, which is great. It saves me a lot of headaches and grief. So once that part gets cleared, a lot of people fall into this trap too. Is if a friend or a family member or a colleague introduces you to somebody, psychologically, you put your guard down, which you shouldn't. You don't know this other person. You know the person introducing you to them. And that's usually when the first domino starts to fall. So you think they're okay. And hopefully they are. But you need to be consistent. I'm going to keep pounding that word because now it means a lot for this conversation. You need to treat every opportunity with the same consistent procedures or behavior, whether it's someone that your aunt introduced you to or it's somebody that you met at a conference. They need to go through the same procedures with you. And once you start to understand that and you get that momentum that they got to speak with this accounting, this legal, this compliance, blah blah blah, and then they know that you're real, like you're legitimate, you do real business and you want to follow things the right way, and this is how we do it in my company. And then from there, as I said before, I control the opportunity now. So if I want to connect somebody in the music industry with this technology, it's done through my company. It's done through Esposito Electro Enterprise. It's not done through somebody else's company. I'm not going to create value for somebody else and hope that they take care of me because I'll be chasing them till I'm dead. They're not going to take care of me. That's reality. Another thing why I had to change my whole world after 2016, I had to stop being invited into other people's world and then waiting for my crumbs. I invite people into my world, and it took a long time to perfect that. I didn't know how or what I was doing or building, but I knew I needed to change things for my own mental health and wellness, as far as financially. And it's, I think I perfected a system that's, to an extent, I don't think I can get hurt anymore by people. And I know we go into any opportunity creating value. It's all about making value, whether it's putting things on the balance sheet, whether it's creating new revenues, building jobs. It's all positive, real, tangible value. No BS unicorns that have no sustainable valuation. It's all real business based off of 1905 business practices. You create a product or service or a piece of IP, you price it and you sell it to the market and you make a profit. And with that profit, you keep growing your company. That's the mentality here. It's old school and it's ethical and it's consistent and it's and you just got to be careful who you bring in. If someone called me today and they promised me to bring another $1 billion and I don't like them, I'm not doing business with them. It's not about the money.
How many endeavors are you involved in, Brian?
There's over 75 entities now in my holdings across 25 different industries, and then over 150 joint ventures around the world. So there's a lot of great things happening. I built this wonderful ecosystem of all these companies working with each other, sharing resources, sharing IP, building real value, and it's great. It's great. For the first time, I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing here. I get to help startups grow and succeed and survive. I get to work with Fortune 500 companies, but it's all on my terms. There's no duress. I most of my life I was living and working under duress and stress and BS, and that was all because I was surrounded by toxic people with their hands in my pocket or unrealistic demands, and I should never have been in that position. People listening, if you're in that position, it doesn't get better. I need a near-death car accident to shake me enough to make a move and change things. But life is precious, and if you're not doing what you love, and you're not, we all have bills. So there's some realities where you just can't quit your job today and lose your home or your car or your insurance. but you need to start making some really tough decisions to prepare yourself to be on a path that makes you happy, makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning, makes you want to go out and attack the day with a smile on your face. And that's where everybody needs to get to. And it ain't easy. But if you're in America or a first world country, it's a hell of a lot easier than other places around the world. So you're one step ahead of anybody else.
Yeah, well, that is for sure, no doubt about that part. Yeah, it's fascinating how environment is such a big indicator of change, and having things front and center in our lives pushes us, like, because most of the time the pain or the opportunity is there. It's just we don't see it. We're not associated to it, or we're looking in the wrong direction. And you touched on your car accident again, and that bringing it. You said that that's the tall person you were anyway, but that just kind of shoved it all the way to the front and just keeps it there. It's a lot of the stuff that me and Coach work on. We always say that when we hear principles that are always familiar for us, it's associating people to what's possible for them. And if you haven't had an event that's significant like that, you haven't had a bunch of people die in your family that are close to you, you haven't seen things or been close to things that just tear life apart. What do you think, Brian, is the best way to get some of that urgency, some of that leverage, and some of that like potential activated?
Yeah, great question. I just like you can tell somebody not to do something, but they really don't grasp it until they actually do it and they get hurt by it. I want to have an answer for you, but I think you just need to get beaten down to the ground until you can't take it anymore, and you figure it out. I wish I had an answer. I'm not trying to avoid it. Uh, Everybody's got their own timetable, right? For things, everybody has their moment where they make a decision to change. Even if it's quitting smoking, there's a moment that happens when they want to make that change. They can read everything in the world. They can watch 1,000 commercials with somebody talking through their throat. They'll watch the commercial while they're smoking, but until they have that moment where they want to consciously make that decision and then back it up with action, that's when you see it happen. Everybody just need a wake up call. If they're in a bad position, that alone should be enough drive. If you're not happy, that should be all you need to want to try different things. Doesn't mean you're gonna have the perfect answer step 2 or your next action. That could be just as bad, but you got to keep maneuvering until you find some calmness and happiness. And you should never make a decision or a reactionary decision based on emotion. Like, people need to take a moment before they make any important decision. Breathe. I love this Wim Hof guy. He's like 11 minutes of breathing. It's perfect for me. In a moment where I may want to react to something with my Italian DNA and just go into a reaction, I take a moment, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then 9 out of 10 times it wasn't even worth my time to even react to that situation, and just let it play out. Life can be a movie, especially for a lot of people. If you just sat back and let it play out, you didn't even have to be an actor in that movie. You could just be buying a ticket and watching in a theater. Didn't need your participation. That moment did not need your participation. People like to dive in and then cause more chaos, and now take you further off your path. Every time I'm on a good path, that damn devil will jump in front of me and shine things at me and dance around and try to distract me. And I've learned that. I've learned that anything that's looks amazing or that's exciting and like that's usually something to distract you from where you're currently at and where you're currently going. And it all takes practice. It all takes new experiences. The older you get, and finally, I'm not the youngest person in the room anymore. I've hit 40. So I kind of demand a little more attention just from my age. When I'm a 20-year-old, even though I may have known more than a 6-year-old in that room, I would not get the respect or time that I deserve. But now that age gap has lessened and I know when to speak, when not to speak, I know to hold my emotion. Silence is stronger than being loud and obnoxious, and all that takes practice. I don't. There's no go buy this book or watch this YouTube video and tomorrow you're going to be the best version of yourself. You just have to work on it. I've had to work on it.
Yeah. Back to consistency. Right?
Consistency.
Pushing.
That's the word of the day.
Oh yeah, I love what you said about the movie, right? And it just came to me. I was like, people would rather be an extra in someone else's movie than be the hero in their own. Right?
You
They
said it a
push
lot better than
themselves.
me. Mine was like a 10-minute video. You precise.
You gave me the lead. You gave me the lead in. Thank you. Appreciate it. But it's that. I mean, but it's the and back to the how can you push that into yourself? Like you got to get beaten down, but I think it's work on it. But it's being intentional to work on it, right? It's like knowing that there's something out there and going, there must be better than this. I must be able to get better than this, and just constantly going towards that one step at a time, that progress over perfection. You know, I think it's so cool to think about it because the easier path is what we'll tend to take if we go unchecked. But we've got to be intentional to create the one we want. What's your thoughts on that, Coach? Can you wrap all that up?
I can try. Yeah, I think, well, just going back to what you said about being the hero in your own movie, we so underestimate what we're capable of. I don't think we really know. And like Brian mentioned, sometimes it takes those really painful, grim experiences to really define what we want. Coach, you and I talked about this before on previous episodes about how scary of a place frustration or uncomfortability can be if you're used to it, if it's a habit, if you wake up every day and you know what to expect, even if it's bad, you won't do anything about it because you know it's coming. So to tap into sometimes bringing on the pain a little bit more helps you define what you actually want. And that's what, you know, the pain of discipline versus the pain of regret. And there's some great quotes around that. But I just like what you said about the breathing stuff, right? Because that clears everything out of the way.
Yeah.
I've experimented a lot in the past couple of years with meditation, and breathing is maybe the simplest. Focusing on the breath, right? Is what you're doing is clearing out all of your reactive carnal instincts to what happens in your life, and you're left with what's stripped away after that, which is pure truth.
Yeah.
And you can't access that unless you are in that calmer state. So I'm just wondering if you can speak a little bit more about Wim Hof. Maybe some of the viewers don't know who he is, but or some of the other practices that you practice to get into that state to where you're the most resourceful. What does that look like for you, Brian?
Yeah, I just this because my hobbies work, my love is work, my passions work. So I don't have that life work balance or personal life work balance. So I'm not the spokesperson for what that looks like yet. That's the next chapter of my life. But I knew I needed something in addition to growth and just personal evolution of not reacting. Yeah, there was a time in my history where if I was being taken advantage of, or somebody hurt me, or someone that I cared about, or attacked one of my companies, I'd flip a table, and that's embarrassing. That's foolish. I don't want to. It's not the mark I want to leave on this world. And why I started to ask myself, I'm the reason that situation happened. I allowed it to happen. I can't be mad at the people, so I had to start working on that process, like we talked about earlier. And then I had to start working on calming myself down, because I am a peaceful person. People kind of, I attract people. They want to kind of be around me, and that's a whole strength in itself that I didn't really understand or tap into correctly. And why was I a magnet for all these different kinds of people? Ultimately, a lot of them just wanted to use me because of the access that I had, or the relationships that I had, or the companies that I have, and they just, whether they gravitated towards me because there was momentum, which I absolutely love, or they wanted to try to steal a piece of what I was building and attach themselves to me. Regardless of their motivators, I was the one that was bringing them into my world. So I didn't want to, I couldn't react the way I was reacting anymore. I gave myself shingles at one point in my life. I woke up with Bell's palsy. I woke up with Bell's palsy. It's like 5 a.m. one morning. And this is how effed up my world was. I'm brushing my teeth. Water's falling down my face. I mouthwash. I'm like, this is weird. Mouthwash is falling down my face. I go to Starbucks. I get coffee. I'm driving. Coffee. I'm like, what is going on here? I go to work until 11 o'clock. I go 6 hours without realizing that my face was melting off my body. And I went to the bathroom and threw water on my face, and I said, oh, I had a stroke. That's how simple my reaction was. I'm like, oh, I had a stroke. I didn't panic. I'm like, well, that meant, add that to the list of grief that I already have. So, when you're in that robot mode, I couldn't, I should have went 30 seconds into that morning realizing I had a problem, not going and interacting with people. Like I was numb to my own existence. I'm just going through the motions of life. And that was all part of my journey on I'm causing health issues now because of my behavior and my work and the stresses that I'm inviting into my life. It's not the stresses that are happening to me. Why me? Poor me. It's my fault. So I had to start working on how do I fix that, and I could only fix that if I was calm and I could analyze what am I doing? What A is causing B and B is causing Z. What is going on here? And I couldn't do that if I was in a place of chaos or turmoil or my brain was all angry or emotional. There's no way you could figure out how to get on a good path or how to fix your life or how to start having a little better balance. And for me, it was really health issues and then that accident that pushed me to just try and be calm. What's funny is you do have control over your life. I firmly believe that. I like that there may be destiny. I love the idea of fate, but I do really hope that we have some control over where we're at and what we're doing. But to worry about things that you have no control over is the worst thing in the world for anybody. And all this time and energy, even what's happening in the world and this huge separation. I think we have the biggest global civil war in life right now, whether it's political reasons, economic reasons, gender reasons, obviously COVID and vaccine reasons. Everybody's fighting with everybody, and everybody has all these opinions. But the decision makers are doing all that. Look at your life, and what do you have control over? Just focus on that. Focus on your little bubble. And enjoy your decisions, enjoy whatever happiness you can create. And you have to block out 99% of life that you just have no control over. And just accept what you do have control over and find ways to have fun with it. Find ways to wake up and enjoy your decisions and what you can create and what you can accomplish. And again, this is me taking 20 years to be able to comfortably say this. It doesn't just happen, but you do need to start somewhere.
Yeah, I think in the age of social media, that's all you see when you pull it up, right? It's problem this, problem that, problem that. And it's almost like there's an obligation to adopt these problems as I'm going to fix these things. I'm going to share my opinion. I'm going to tell people what the right thing to do is. And
it's just causing more noise and you're eliminating people from your life. I mean, everybody's so hypersensitive right now. This is the first time I think ever where just silence and ignorance is bliss. Like just create a happy little environment and embrace it and cherish it. Otherwise, you're going to be living in fear and uncertainty, and you're going to be scared as hell if you continue to go down this path.
I appreciate that so much. So maybe this is a good point to grab some takeaways. If I might, gentlemen, we'll put in the theme of something we're taking away or some advice we can give for how to do that. And I rarely do this. So I'll take the lead on this one because I've been experimenting with this myself. I mentioned meditation. Meditation has been a game changer for me to just, even if I don't contemplate what's actually going on in my mind, I just let things settle. I carry it on with the rest of my day. And when I say it, my calmness, my presence with things, and it's almost like a practice. You're practicing not reacting to things. And to be able to take that into life is a bit of a superpower. And to your point, Brian, it takes some time to hone that skill, but man, is it like a weapon. And weapon is such an oxymoron, right? Because you're not doing anything, but you have this defense shield up that these things that just drive you nuts before you didn't even know drove you nuts don't drive you nuts anymore. And you're able to exist in society. And to your point, your world gets smaller and you shrink with what's around you, but then that's where you can make the difference. That's where you influence people, and that's where you can pick and choose the type of people that you want in your life and choose to, tell the toxic people to see the door. Coach, take away, please.
Preach on, Josh. Well said.
I don't know if I've got anything else to say after that. Absolutely.
I'm not following that.
I mean, just quite simply, right? Just really make it easy. But we're not designed to take information in for hundreds of millions of people.
That's a good one.
We don't have the capacity for that. It's ridiculous to try and do it. It's like, in fact, the more we do it, the more we get away from what actually is important for us, right? And so I think you said it actually, Brian, something along the lines of that. Like with deletion creatures, and it's useful because we can't take any information, just delete everything.
Yeah.
And there's just when you do that, then you can go, now here's what is most important.
Yeah.
Do that. Go back to being a hero in your own movie.
I love that. I think that's the biggest takeaway. And let me just say, we all have scruffs and we look fantastic. I mean, we're killing the scruff right now.
I love it.
I love it, man. That's great.
Brian, it's been a pleasure. Any last words that you want to plug? Anything? What are you working on now? If you want to share with anybody.
Yeah, we have some amazing companies in our holdings. One of which is Nodal. I've been obsessed with connectivity and wireless networks for a very long time. Nodal has become the world's largest wireless network. We're connecting hundreds of millions of devices around the world, and we've launched Nodal Cash. So anybody around the world can download the Nodal Cash app. And for the first time, anybody can be involved in cryptocurrency and earn Nodal Cash cryptocurrency. So that network and the demand for that network is on fire. It's an amazing company, and I think we're going to be doing some great things. And then we launched we went public with Turncoin at the end of July of this year. We have the public support of Drew Brees, Patrick Mahomes, American Idol's Randy Jackson, and a bunch more of which we'll be announcing. And we've created Virtual Stacks, a completely regulated and compliant platform where people of celebrity status, whether they're entertainers, athletes, musicians, singers, podcast hosts, influencers, can put themselves on the exchange. They launch virtual stacks on this exchange, and your fans, your followers, your supporters can actually buy a virtual share of their favorite celebrity icon or personality. So it'll be a great liquidity event for these amazing professionals where they can obviously create a lot of revenue and value for their celebrity or popularity status. But more importantly, the amateurs, whether they're an amateur athlete or musician or someone that wants to become an actor or an actress, they can create this environment where they can have their family members, peers, or potential fans and supporters help fuel their career and actually help them make money that they need to perfect their skill, buy an instrument, get hockey gear, and it's an amazing platform. So that took 5 years of work, an incredible team, and the list goes on. I try to always be involved with companies that create real value, help make the world a little bit better, and have a cool story behind them that's tangible and makes a difference.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. Thank you for sharing that stuff. That's amazing.
Right?
Amazing what's happening.
And it's all about being open to the world. I even talking to you guys, I love to think back. All the decisions that I've made led me to this moment. I wouldn't know Nodal and that great team if after those Twin Towers went down in 2001, I got obsessed with Nextel, that push to talk connectivity. And if I didn't see that and realize how important that was, even to this day, it's the same hub and spoke model. They put a cell tower up, we all connect to it. You put a Wi-Fi thing in your house and you all connect to it. But if there's no power or there's a storm and that goes down, you got a very expensive MP3 player in your pocket. So I started building wireless networks, and foolishly, I mean, who does that? I mean, I got my ass kicked. I started to go against the likes of Sprint and all these big companies early on. And that journey led me to create some great technologies and be part of Nodal and what we've built. Same thing with the Turncoin and virtual stacks. I was asked to speak in Dubai in 2019 during an investment summit. I flew out there. The CEO of Turncoin, Rudolf Markov, showed the world his platform. I was like complete awe and blown away. Also thinking, God, I got to follow this guy with my story. I mean, this guy is changing the world for everybody on this planet. And then we immediately hit it off, and I became part of that company. But if I wasn't there doing that speech, or if last minute I didn't want to go, I would never have been part of something. So people need to understand, everything does happen for a reason, but you got to be open in the world. You got to see the opportunities. They're there. You just got to be a little aggressive sometime and grab it. Sorry, that was a long any last thoughts.
Well worth it. Thank you for sharing. And Brian, thank you for joining Truth Seekers. We really appreciate it.
It's my honor. Thank you, guys. Keep up the great work.
Brian, take care. Thank you for watching another episode of Truth Seekers. We appreciate your interaction. So please comment, like, subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want more, check out some of our links. Links to our masterclass, The Achiever's Mindset, and come join our LinkedIn group.
And what do you want to see more of? Remember, we're here to share the simple secrets of successful. So help us do that. What do you want to see? What do you want to see more of? Thanks, and see you again next time.